breaking news now at 6.
I believe a new election should be called.
After allegations of election fraud.
He was more like, you need to get Mark Harris in here.
Months of investigation and 4 days of bombshell testimony.
I thought what he was doing was illegal, and I was right.
It was embattled candidate Mark Harris himself who called for a new election for North Carolina's 9th Congressional District.
Anything you can say about your testimony today?
Now we're asking who would run and the timeline for you to finally have a representative in Congress. A Channel 9 investigation in November was the first to uncover claims of illegal ballot collection.
Despite everything we uncovered, Mark Harris had maintained the whole time that he deserved to be seated, but that all changed today. In fact, we cut into programming this afternoon as he made a statement saying that a new election is warranted. And Channel 9's Allison Lottis and Joe Bruno have been in Raleigh for us all week. The hearing has had more twists and turns than any of us could have expected, and you two saw it with a front row seat.
And Erica and Scott, the biggest of them all was Mark Harris actually taking the stand to call for a new election. That happened after he said he got some of his testimony wrong.
Originally, Mark Harris testified that he was never aware, or he was counting on emails between him and his son, John Harris, to be produced by his attorneys. Well, he said that he thought that he never told anyone that they should be private. He came back after lunch break and he said he made a mistake. He remembered a conversation he had with his other son, Matt, that he told him that he thought those emails between him and John were going to be private. He blamed the confusion on his recent illness.
On January 18th, I went to the hospital. After battling what we thought was bronchitis, I developed a severe infection that actually caused me to become septic. In the process of that illness, I experienced 2 strokes from which I'm still recovering. Though I thought I was ready to undergo the rigors of this hearing and am getting stronger, I clearly am not, and I struggled this morning with both recall and confusion.
But here's why those emails are important. In those emails, John warned his father, Mark Harris, that what McCrae Dallas was doing is possibly illegal.
And the turning point in all of this really appeared to be when Dan McCready's attorney was questioning Mark Harris about those messages, and it really led to a very abrupt lunch break.
Was the text that you referred to, was that produced to the board?
I do not know.
And after Harris called for a new election, the State Board of Elections, a short time later, unanimously voted for a new one.
They said that the evidence shows the election was tainted.
Based on the evidence we've heard today or this week of the corruption, the absolute mess with the absentee ballots, the illegal activities that have occurred there in the election office itself, and with the people involved in the absentee ballots.
The board hopes this is the first step in restoring the public's trust in the electoral system.
And as for a new election, a new primary, I questioned Mark Harris's attorney. He told me they haven't discussed whether or not he'll run.
All right, Allison and Joe are experts there in Raleigh reporting on this breaking news tonight. Thank you, both of you. Well, now we're looking ahead to, of course, what all this means. The current state law requires a new filing period before the new primary before we get to the general election.
And each of those things takes time. So it could likely be November at the earliest before anyone is seated in Congress.
Of course, one would assume Dan McCready will run again in the Democratic race. He's planning to hold a news conference later on tonight. Right after today's vote, he sent out an email to supporters asking for donations, so that looks quite clear. He also tweeted out today saying this was a great step forward for democracy, what happened today. Harris's main opponent in the 2018 primary was incumbent at the time Robert Pittenger, but Pittenger said that he's not going to run again. He's not going to take part in a special election, so that paves the way for other Republicans to jump into this race at this point. Now, we did reach out to the Wake County District Attorney today as she's leading a separate criminal investigation into the election fraud. Her investigation includes the 2016 and 18 races. She says no one who testified in the hearings this week was granted immunity. Also said the State Board of Elections will forward all their investigative findings now that the hearing is over.